This story popped out of Tallahassee, what was it, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that Leonard Hamilton is being sued by 6 former players over a lack of NIL promises being fulfilled. The wonderful new era of college sports where you never quite know where it's going to go. Pete Holland of the Tallahassee Democrats been following the Noles all year and reporting on that story. Pete, thanks so much for hopping on today.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me on.
I'd say this was... I don't know when you first caught wind of what's going on with this lawsuit down there. What is the deal with this NIL lawsuit going on with Leonard Hamilton? Because this is kind of the brave new frontier, right, of college sports with stuff like this.
Well, it was definitely, it came out of the blue, obviously, because you never thought that of all coaches who pretty much been walking a thin line their entire coaching career would be accused of doing something like that. So 6 former of his players are suing him directly for unpaid NIL, collect NIL compensation, $1.5 million. It was $250 each. Pretty much, long story short, has been all in reports that they have not received any kind of money or any kind of compensation from Hamilton all year. And, you know, going to that last season, because they all played on the same team, it got to the point where they protested, and before the Duke game, they didn't go to practice and they didn't play. So it got to that point where it just got a little bit hectic, and now that it's just coming out that they're going to be suing him. So we know of their side, but we still don't know what Leonard Hamilton's side. He hasn't really spoke out about it. FSU made a statement on it, supporting him, but they're doing their own investigation how things have went down between Hamilton and his party when they were negotiating with those players when they recruited them. So this is definitely a mysterious thing that we're still trying to figure out.
And, you know, a lot's happened. FSU hasn't played in 2 weeks here, so Leonard hasn't had any press conferences or anything to go through. That obviously will change after the game tomorrow. I'm sure this will come up, and I'd imagine you'll ask and he'll no comment. You is how these things go, but you'll have to get into that tomorrow. You know, Leonard's been doing this a long time, right, Pete? He's 76 years old. We just saw Jim Larinaga step away a couple weeks ago. Like, the old guard, they're all gone. How do you think this affects Leonard here going forward, where he's kind of the lone holdout of the guys that have been around this league for a long time?
Well, he's in the back end of his career, so it could be at any moment. If he wants to walk away, he can. If you want to keep his head all high and try to keep this. But I don't think Leonard Hamilton is not the type of person who wants to go out like that.
Yeah.
So I think he wants to finish out the season and see where it could lead them. Hamilton, I mean, I only know him for a brief time, but I probably will guess that he will want to go out the way in his own terms, and let's see if he can make an effort of making FSU at least a tournament team once again. So they are competitive, but obviously I don't know if they're still a tournament team. They still have that proven to us yet, but I think he's probably the guy who wants to go out in his own terms, but having this allegation held against him, I think that's probably not the best way you want to go out, especially now that we've seen other coaches having their share of opinion about the new age of basketball. But we'll see. It could come at any moment, but my gut feeling is that he's going to at least stay for at least for the rest of the year.
How do you think this affects, like this year's team? Obviously, they haven't played since this happened, and you never know what anyone knew was going to happen before it became public. But, it's not like current players are suing him or anything like that. Do you think it motivates the guys? Well, how do you think this affects the team tomorrow night?
I'm not really sure. I don't know if the allegation will be just enough to make them motivate after their performance the last game when they allowed 15 three-pointers against Louisville. Leonard Hamilton always preaches guys that to eliminate distractions. He's always spoken to us about any kind of conflict outside of the noise that goes on with the program. And we never thought that it would be related to his lawsuit, but he's always been a guy that teaches players to avoid any kind of distractions and just keeping things in house. So I don't think it's going to be too much of a see how they will be motivated just on that. I think they'll just be motivated enough that they need an ACC win because they haven't got one yet. So that alone will be motivation itself. I don't need the off the court distraction will tell you otherwise.
Yeah, we got 2 0-2 ACC teams meeting tomorrow evening down in Tallahassee with the Cuse and the Noles here. And you look at what Florida State's done this year. Is we got Pete Holland from the Tallahassee Democrat with us. You know, they're 9-4. That's fine, right? But like, there's no real standout wins. And then you look at some of these losses. You mentioned what happened with Louisville. Like, I don't know what to make of this team. What have you made of this team so far this year?
I like their defense. They're definitely one of the top defensive teams out there. I mean, just looking at their stats, they're nearly ranked top 50 in almost every defensive category you can think of. They're number 1 in 3-point defense, number 1 in steals, number 1 in block shots. Hamilton preaches defense all year round, and he always mentions about getting the deflections, and it will generate the points. So that's probably the best thing that what got them where they are now. But also what's really concerning, and it's still a concern even for Hamilton, is that this team is too inconsistent, especially on the offensive side. Jameer Watkins going to do what he does best, but who's your other reliable player outside of him? I like Malik Urans, who was a JUCO player. He was a number 1 JUCO player before he came here. He's starting to emerge as a second option, but you don't really, outside of those two, you don't really have a consistent scorer who can get you double figures. There's guys, but who is that guy who can take the heat off of Jameer Watkins or even Malik Ewing? We have not seen that yet.
We saw in the Dome last year how good Watkins is. He put up 27 as Florida State handled Syracuse easily last year. I mean, this guy's the real deal, right? I mean, he's been in college for a minute, but, 6'7", he can score at multiple levels. How tough a guard has he been this year?
Oh, man, Jameer Watkins is a dog. He's maybe not the most efficient shooter out there, but he tries to be. He tries to elevate his game by being more of an all-around shooter. Because that's where those NBA scouts are probably looking at him that way. Because you got to be an all-around player if you're going to play that guard spot. But Jameer Watkins, he's an attacker. He's a gamer, and he attacks the basket. That's his game. He's going to get to the basket. He's going to generate points any way he can. He's a decent perimeter shooter, and obviously he's a good defender. And having that along with being with the FSU program for the last 2 years, I think he's definitely a well-coached player, especially coming from being coached by Hamilton himself. So he's definitely a guy who's NBA ready. I don't know if he's going to be a first rounder, but he's definitely a talented enough player to at least NBA teams are definitely going to be in tune and probably will make him a contributor.
Pete Holland, Tallahassee Democrat, with us. So that game's tomorrow. The Syracuse women are down there on Sunday, and talking about NBA ready. The women are going to get to deal with somebody that's WNBA ready right now. That's Taya Wesson on Sunday. Dropped 40 the other day. She's just been torching people all season long. How good is she right now? The FSU women have been playing great.
Man, let me tell you about Taya. She's on a whole new level. I'll even give you a little insight about before the holiday break. They were playing Jacksonville. She got injured. We didn't know what the injury was. She was holding her left leg, and she didn't return that game. And we didn't know that if she was going to be ready. So they had her as day-to-day, but I figured that maybe they will just have her miss a game or two and get ready for their West Coast trip when they play Stanford and Cal in a couple weeks. So she played against Virginia Tech, and look what you just saw. She dropped 40 as if she didn't get injured at all. I like Taya's game. I remember one of my colleagues made a story about her a year back about being compared to Dwayne Wade, and you can see that. The way that she's just get to the basket. She's a good perimeter shooter, an outstanding defender. She pretty much can do it all, and she can take over a game. It's just an amazing, just a great all-around player. I'm just glad that she's having that level of success. I know everybody wants to, but obviously everybody, even on the women's basketball side, people are going to pay attention to women's basketball with girls like Juju Watkins, like a Paige Buckner in UConn. There's a lot of talent out here in the women's basketball world, but you don't see Taya Wesson getting that much attention, knowing that Florida State is always, in the women's side, or at least are good enough to be in the NCAA tournament, but also she has a mindset of trying to make deep into the tournament. So that's something that she hasn't accomplished yet. These last 4 years that FSU's always been one and done, and they're trying to change that. So Taya Wesson could probably get there, and they outside of her, they got a bunch of scorers like Michaela Timpson. She's a walking double-double. Amaria Gordon has also stepped in, averaging 16 points a game. So this could be an all-around really good team, but as bad as the ACC men's look like, and conference-wise, the women's side has been spectacular. So, and Florida State is among one of them.
Yeah, the women's league looks like the best, certainly the deepest in the country, if not the best out there, Pete. And so 2 tough games for Syracuse basketball down there this weekend. Before I let you go, football was obviously, just a mess down in Tallahassee this year. What's going on there? Like, how tough was that to watch this fall, and how strange was it to see Florida State struggle like that?
Oh man, well, we got another 15 minutes. I'm not really. I'll just say this: I'm from Florida. I'm originally. I'm not a Florida State fan, but I watch a lot of Florida State football. A lot of my friends who went there. I used to play football. A lot of my old teammates went there. So I'm always in tune with Florida State. This was probably the worst Florida State team I've ever seen. It was that bad in every category you can think of. They obviously the transfer portal was a huge miss for Mike Norvell, which is ironic because Mike Norvell has been praised for getting all the portal guys. Mm-hmm. But you can just see having DJ Ungalele was a failure, and it might not necessarily be his fault in particular. It's just they didn't really do a good enough job of continuing to surrounding him. They couldn't run the football. They were averaging like below 2.5 yards to carry. They were like in the bottom in the running game. The offensive line was bad. The defense had moments, but has been inconsistent. It was just so bad. And they can't fire Mike Norvell because you got him on the contract, and it's going to be a huge buyout just to get him out. So, but they believe in Norvell, and he knew Norvell, and Norvell knew that he had to make changes. So he fired his coordinators and a couple position coaches, and he added his old colleague Gus Malzahn to run his offense. Mm-hmm. He's taking his play calling aside and give it a reins to Gus Malzahn. He added Tony White from Nebraska, who was Nebraska's defense was well respected, having allowed a rushing touchdown in the Big Ten, if I know correctly. So it's going to be a whole new defense, whole new team. Compared to what it was this past season, the more notable addition from the transfer portal is adding Thomas Castellanos from Boston College. So he fits the style of what Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn offense will want. He was recruited from Florida State. He always wanted to be a Florida State guy. So you definitely will see a complete improvement from what we saw this past season.
Yeah, hard to imagine it being that bad again next year down in Tallahassee. All right, Pete, thanks for the knowledge and hopping on for a few. We'll be watching the game tomorrow, and thanks so much for filling us in on the Noles.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, there he is, Pete Holland from the Tallahassee Democrat, covers all Florida State sports down that